Earlier this year, our high school was faced with the challenge of how do we reach out to the LGBT community with love and respect and not compromise our faith. And it was through that challenge that we actually produced a film. And kind of the next thing we know, once the word got out about the film, we found there was a lot of other churches and schools that were dealing with these same issues, and that the film was helping them to have these conversations that just weren't being done. Earlier in the summer, we were contacted by a school, and they asked us if we could come out and screen the film to their students. We were planning on being in Florida in the fall because we wanted to be a part of the Freedom March. And if you're not familiar with that, the Freedom March is an event where people who were once living in a homosexual lifestyle give testimony of how they encountered Jesus and how they were changed and are no longer living that life. And the timing on this worked out really good because some of the guys who were in our film, Gabriel Pagan and Prince Wright, would be there and then could join us when we screened the film at the school, and we would do this question and answer time. So when we arrived at the school, we realized this is a really big school. There's like 700 students there, and we showed the film. And afterwards, I put my phone number up as I normally would, so people can, kids could just text a question, and then we as the team up there could give some answers. And when I did that, my phone just blew up. There was like 100 text messages in less than 10 minutes. And they got pretty intense. There was, it wasn't just homosexuality, but it was issues like pornography and addiction, suicidal thoughts, demonic things. So after we answered a few questions, I realized we just needed to have some ministry time for these kids. So I shared a short message. Gabriel shared a few things that he had on his heart for the students there.
So for those of you here, you are struggling with things. Maybe it's the suicide, maybe it's pornography, maybe it's another addiction, maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety. I'm gonna ask you to come up here right now. And don't care about don't care about the person who's sitting next to you. Think about Jesus and what he's thinking, and knowing that he wants to do a work. If you want to be free today, if you want to know that you can be broken and healed and delivered, if you want that today, come up forward, guys.
The Lord showed me that today a lot of people were going to respond. And there is a pressure to sit in your seat because what does the person next to you think? That person is not going to get you into heaven. That person would probably never take nails and stand on the cross for you. But some of you have been sexually abused and it torments you. If you want freedom, get up here. Some of you are struggling with anxiety so bad that you are thinking about committing suicide. If you're struggling, get up here. Let God be God in your life. God is spirit, and though you can't see him, by faith, you get to lay hold of that. You want to know what faith is? A choice. It's not waiting for it to fall on you in your chair. It's choosing to engage with a God who loves you.
And then I did an altar call, and over half the kids came up. There was probably about 350 kids that came up to the altar, and we began to pray over them. We had a few other people with our team, and it was just amazing to see this response. These kids were crying. They started praying for each other. At one point I said, hey, who would like to give a testimony for, what is Jesus doing right now? And kids began to testify of freedom, salvation. A lot of kids gave their lives to Christ that day. This went on for about a half hour with testimonies. The time of ministry lasted for like 2 hours. We were just blown away by the whole thing. And one of the really powerful things that happened that day is one of the students who was in there was having suicidal thoughts. And he found me on Instagram later the next day or later that night and just sent me a message. And he said, Mr. Peters, I was the one with the suicidal thoughts. And I just want to tell you, today was one of the best days of my life. And when that kind of thing happens, you know it's only God, that only God could do that. So I'm just thankful to be a part of this. and that God right now is using this film as part of raising up a Jesus generation. And wherever we can bring this film and bring the team of people that God has given us, I believe that we're going to see lives touched, lives transformed, because it's the heart of God to reach the LGBT community with the power of the gospel. And I pray that we will just be obedient and go wherever He sends us and see His hand touch lives throughout the nations.